So now we need to set up the searching in our search component.ts file. What we want is to send the search query after the user types into the input. This can be done using the subject observable like we did in our movie service to send searches after an input change. First, we'll need to import subject, and we'll also need to import a function on observables called map. Then down in our search components class, we're going to make a search variable, and that's going to be of type subject string, and we're going to make that equal to new subject string. And we're also going to make a fetching variable, which is going to be a boolean, which is equal to false at the beginning, and this will tell us when we are fetching from the server or when we're not. So now down in the ng-on-init method, which happens every time the component is going to be put on the page, we're going to subscribe to that search. But first we're going to map through the function, or map through the values. And we're going to say this dot fetching equals true, and then return that query. We're also going to subscribe to it, and we're just going to pass in a function that we're going to make now called search query, and we're going to bind the search component class. So what happens is after this map function has done its thing, it's going to pass this query value to our search query. The reason we had to bind is because that this variable is different when we are inside our subscribe method here. So this query is of type string, and for right now all we're going to do is console.log that query. We're also going to add a regular search variable up here of type string, and that is for our ng model that I'll show you just now in our HTML file for our app.component or search component. Right here, this is just for this variable to be equal to empty when we start. So now we're also going to do one more thing in here, and that is an event for our input. So whenever an input happens on our input here, we are going to call that search variable, our search observable, and say next and send it the search value. And if we go back to our application and we start typing, you'll see that we are console.logging every time I give it an input. But we don't want to do this to our server. We don't want to send all these multiple requests at once. We want to send after the user stops typing for a certain amount of time. And observables have this great thing called a debounce time method that we can use to go ahead and do that for us. So let's go to our search component.ts file and go ahead and import that at the top. And then right here, after our search, before our map, we're going to say debounce time for 500 seconds or 500 milliseconds, and that'll wait 500 milliseconds before sending it to our map and then doing our subscribe. So now if we go back to our application and we type in something, you'll see that it only sends it after I finish typing.